Hi, my name is Owusu-Forfie, and I'm the founding president of Coders Who Travel Incorporated. I also lead the bootcamps as a facilitator who brings together experts in my rich network in the mathematical sciences disciplines. Today, I'm going to share a video by one of our amazing instructors called Ikuya Osewa Ahenkra, who is the operations manager at EAI Information Systems. Unlike other bootcamps or tutorials that you can find on the internet without Q&A of an actual class, we have representing veterans or former military professionals who joined the session with their questions and answer. The first one is Ashley, the second is Richard, the third is William, and the fourth is Robert. Thank you for watching in advance. If you have any questions, you can follow up with me through these channels and other organization members. Our social media channels are as follows: on LinkedIn, the Coders Who Travel Foundation; on YouTube, Coders Who Give; Instagram, Coders Who Travel; Facebook, Coders Who Travel; X, or formerly Twitter, Coders Who Travel; and our email, info@coderswhotravel.com. Bye for now.
Welcome to Introduction to Python with me, Ikuya Osewa. I'm going to turn off the video so that we just focus on the slides for now. So, Introduction to Python. Our main objectives for this course and these sessions, that is the next 6 sessions, would be to go through the importance and relevance of programming. Also understand the benefits of Python programming, then write and understand Python language, right? And be able to create and manipulate simple Python data types, as well as be able to control the flow of a Python program, creating functions so that we can reuse some Python code. So mainly for this course, as we've already mentioned with the course outline, this intro section is for anyone who's interested in Python. You do not need prior knowledge of Python. If you do have some knowledge of Python, you're also welcome. So we're starting off with the assumption that you do not know Python. Okay, so new learners, those who want to also delve into Python, you're welcome to join, and this course would help you have basic understanding of Python so that you can do more with Python. Some of the resources that are available online that can be used, these are the ones I use personally. So these are the ones I recommend, but there are a lot of resources on Python out there, and any one of those should work. There are also other online learning platforms that have it as well, but I would recommend DataCamp. So DataCamp, going to their site, they have very simple and easy to follow Python courses that you can as well use that to complement this. You can also go to the Python official site, that is python.org, and you get basic information about Python. You also get some basic guidelines on Python. There's also W3 Schools, which also has very simple interface and easy to follow Python resources. Okay, any other resource on Python is also welcome. So we'll start off with this quote by Andrew Hunt. That says, in some way, programming is like painting. You can start with a blank canvas and certain basic raw materials. You use a combination of science, art, and craft to determine what to do with them. And that is basically it. This is like the best summary of what programming actually is. So there is the art, there's the creativity, there's some science in there, right? And you mix all that and create this beautiful painting output, right? Or a picture at the end. Let's look at why in today's session mainly what we would be going over. So for this very first session, we are mainly looking at why you should program, why Python, and then a tour of the IDE being the environment where we would be writing our code. Okay, so why program? Mainly, it's very simple. For the reason for anyone would program, I mean, there are many more reasons, but what we'll be looking at generally is because it's a very creative and rewarding activity, right? So, creativity, there's creativity there. At the end, you feel fulfilled. You've been able to create something new that works, right? So, it's very rewarding. You can also make a living out of it. So imagine being this creative, being fulfilled, and then making a living out of it. Again, you're able to also solve difficult data and analysis problems. Right? So there are some data problems that are there. You can analyze them, you can solve them with program. Okay, and have fun. You can also have fun with programming. So programming doesn't have to be mainly solving some big problem out there. It can just be doing something for fun. Okay, the other aspect is helping somebody solve a problem, right? So this somebody could be a group of people helping solve a problem in a community, in a nation, helping a company solve a problem, an individual solve a problem. So there are many reasons why we need to program, right? And this is just to list a few. All right. Then we've talked about why we need to program generally. So let's look at why Python. So for why Python, it's beginner friendly. Beginner friendly, meaning if you have no knowledge of programming, if you have no knowledge of any programming language, Python is one of the simplest ones you can use. The rules that govern Python are very simple, unlike the other programming languages. So if you're a beginner, Python is definitely a good program to start with. It's also versatile in the sense that it can be used in different applications, right? You do not have really limits to it. It can be used in data science. If you're creating some web application, something that would be on the web, you can also use Python. If you're creating a mobile app, a desktop app, you can use Python, right? For data science, artificial intelligence. So it's very versatile in the sense. Also, people who know Python programming currently are in high demand. Okay, so there are a lot of companies, there are a lot of startups, there are a lot of individuals who are looking for people who know Python to help them execute their projects. So it's really in high demand. So you'd be like one of the high demand people in high demand when you learn Python. Again, there's also a supportive community. So Python has a huge community, and there are people learning, creating resources that can be reused by the community. If you need any assistance, there's a big community that supports in that sense. So you don't have to create everything from scratch. There would be somebody who has done something that you can reuse. So that's also one of the benefits of Python. Then we have, is the most popular programming language, right? And popular in this sense. Let's go to the next slide for us to understand what we mean by popular. So popular here is by PYPL, popularity of programming language. And Python has been on the list, I believe, for 3 years now from the time I've checked, right? So for PYPL's popularity of programming, Python is the most popular language, and they do find or they get this data from Google search and a lot of these, not just Google, a lot of these search engines on what people are really looking for in Python, the programming languages people are actually looking for. And it looks like Python at this point has the highest share, being 28.38%. And this has actually gone down from the previous year, right? Compared to a year ago, it was higher than this. So Python is still the most popular programming language currently in search and in demand. So yes, why not join the train that is popular, right? That is in high demand. So that's why we would learn Python. So now that we understand why we should program, and we also know why we are actually starting with Python, let's store the IDE. And I mentioned earlier that the IDE is it's a short for Integrated Development Environment, right? And this is the environment or the tool we will be using for programming and for our next 6 sessions. Okay. Right. So let me share that now so that we can use that. Okay. All right. So the tool that we'll be using for Python in these sessions would be Visual Studio Code, at least for my sessions. There are many tools out there for Python, and anyone would work. So there's PyCharm, people use different ones. There's Visual Studio. There are so many out there, actually. I can't list all of them. There's Jupyter Notebook, if you are using it, and you'd probably see some aspects of Jupyter Notebook with what we would be using here. Okay, so in this case, it's Visual Studio Code. That's what we would be using, and it has support for Python as well. It is not limited to just Python, but it has support for Python as well. So we'll go ahead and use that. So if you do not have Visual Studio Code already, it's easy to download, and it's available for Linux, Mac, Windows. So you can just go to your browser or any search engine you use. I'm using Chrome and Google here. So we have, you can just type Visual Studio Code, because I've searched for this before. It's pre-filling with a download bar, but I'm just taking out the download, so we go straight to Visual Studio Code. Okay. And with Visual Studio Code, so just click the first one, which would be code.visualstudio.com. Okay, so we go there, and at their site, you'd see download, right? So there is download for Windows, but you can then choose whichever operating system you're using. Okay, so I already have it on my machine, but I'm still going to just go to, I'm not going to download, but go through it so you know how this can be done, right? So let's just go through download. So clicking on download would open your folders for you to save it. And after you've saved, you would go through the normal process of double clicking and installing. Okay, since I already have it, I'm not going to do that. So let's close this. Right after downloading, you get this whole getting started and guide. You can read this, right? I think it's good for you, especially if you've not gone through Visual Studio, or this is your first time using Visual Studio Code. You can just go through these steps just to be introduced to Visual Studio, right? We're not going through that today. So I'm going to open I have it open already. So open Visual Studio Code. This is what you get to see right? There are some things you probably wouldn't see because I already have it. So I have like recent, which you're not going to have that. So you have your get started screen, and this is where you can create a new file, open file, and all that. For the walkthroughs, I'm not really sure if you get it on your new download, but since there's a get started, if you do have that, there's a get started with Python development, you can just go ahead and click that, right? And that would like help you. It will help install some of the Python stuff for you already. If you have the get started with Jupyter Notebook, go ahead and go through those steps as well. But let's just try and understand what we see here and the icons and what they mean, okay, and how we would navigate this environment for our subsequent sessions. So we have the very first icon on your left, being the Explorer, right? So that's where your folders, your files, you get to see all of them here, right? So this one, this is also the place you get to. This is also the place you get to add new files. So yes, this is one of the places you would be using a lot, right? We have the search, and search here is where you can search for specific files. You can use keywords to search for some words in a particular file. The source control, we don't have to worry about this for now. When we have our guest like instructor coming in, we have our guest instructor who would be coming in to take us through some basic source control steps and how to set it up. And with that, I think we can use the session, but for now, we can just skip that. Then we have this run and debug, which we do not need at this point. And throughout my session, we will not be using this. So that's also something that we can ignore at this point. Then we have extensions. So extensions, you need this. Okay. There are some other 4 icons that you probably not see on yours. Because I use it for other things, so I have it there, but we're not going to go through those. So extensions, we are going to stay at extensions for now. For extensions, I already have some things installed, right? I mentioned that Visual Studio Code supports Python, meaning that it's not just limited to Python, right? It's one of those, it's one of the editors or IDEs in this case that you can plug in a lot of things, right? So you can plug in support for a lot of the programming languages or a lot of the services that you would need. In this case, ours is just going to focus on Python. So at the extensions, that's where you search and install these plugins to help you make it easy, right, for whatever you're going to use Visual Studio for. In this case, it's Python. So I already have Python installed, but for you, you would go to extensions, just type Python, and you have Python here, first one, right? So first one, and you can get it installed. I have this first one that has Microsoft with the tick there, right? That's the one I would install. Because the extensions are also created by third-party individuals, can also create extensions. So anybody can create extension and make it available for people to install. For me, usually I play it safe in terms of the extensions and the providers, those who develop the extension. So I'm going to go with Microsoft's Python, right? So if you do not have it installed, you would see something like this here, the install button by it. I already have it installed, so I don't have it here. If you see the install button, just click on it, and it would go through the installation for you. Okay, so our first extension to install is Python. Right after installing that, we would go to Jupyter. I mentioned that we would use Jupyter Notebook. So Jupyter as in a PY instead of a PI. Okay, so Jupyter, I also already have this installed, so you get to see it here. So look for a Jupyter with the Microsoft. Okay, so Jupyter, Microsoft checkmark here. You install that. I have the Jupyter key map also, so you can also install these two. Okay, all right. So once that is done, we are ready and we can start now. There are other aspects to the IDE, Visual Studio Code, that we can just, I'm just going to go through quickly. So we have, just like any application, there's the file, the edit, the selection, go, run, terminal, and help. Okay, so if you need documentation and more information, you would have it here. Now, probably you're wondering why mine is dark. If yours isn't, right? If you just install it and it's not, you don't have the dark theme. That is also something you can easily change. So on your bottom left corner, you would see the icon for settings, right? So you can just click on that. Clicking on that, you have so many options, right? So we're going straight to settings. So settings here, clicking on settings will give you text editors. We commonly use selection. You get to choose some of the things here. Okay, so settings would help you choose some basic things to look at, and you can change it. There's accessibility support, right, which I believe is very important. So accessibility support, mine is set to auto. I get to turn it on or off. Okay, so there's so many other options in terms of how the environment should behave, okay, and how it would work best for you. Okay, so there is that. Let's come here. I don't have any accounts, so let's go back to manage. All right, so settings is important in terms of making some changes to the editor so it works for you. So you can just go through them, okay, especially probably the text editor part. So you can make basic changes to that and it meets your need. So there is also, we're not going to go through the other ones. Let's go straight to color theme. Okay, so color theme here, when I click on color theme, at the top middle, you'd see I have all these options here. So there's the dark visual, there are all these other options. There's the QB dark, Molokai, so many, right? Visual Studio 2019 dark. There's also light, high contrast, if you'd want any, right? So there's a light part, there are the dark sections. So you get to choose the theme you want. So let's just, my current one is dark, default dark, just so that we get to see. Let me just change it to one of the light ones. I hardly use light, but yeah, so this would be, this is like light. Yeah, I don't like that. So let's go back and let me change back to, so this is quite light. I guess there are other light options. Well, this is light. I still prefer the dark theme. So going back to my dark, so there's dark Visual Studio, and then I want to choose something else. So go back to my dark default. Okay, so yes. So this is much better for me. If you're okay with the light, yes, definitely you can use that. You just have to make the environment one that would be comfortable for you to use. Okay. So for our tour, I think that is basically it. This is mainly what you need to know for now. I think in creating a file, let's just go back and, okay, before we end it, let's just create one file, right? All we're going to do is just create a file and open folders. Okay, so that is all. And then we end our tour. So mainly with Visual Studio Code, one of the good things is you can have, you can open a folder, right? So if you open a folder, we would also go through it so that you understand what opening a folder is. So that means that everything in the folder is available in Visual Studio Code for you to either add new files to it, navigate, open some of them, edit them, right? So it makes it easy. So in this case, we would go through file. So you click on file here. I know there's an open folder link here, but we are not going through that. So you go to file and then you choose open folder. Okay, so open folder, you then navigate to the folder you want to use. So usually I recommend having like one specific folder for your different projects where all the files related to it are available. So I have this VCC folder, and you could probably create the same thing on your machine so that all our practice sessions would be saved in that folder. Okay, so have VCC, I select, so you choose the folder, and then select folder, click on that is if you're on Windows. I believe Mac would also be different. So in this case, I have nothing in my VCC folder, so you would see VCC, the folder name should be up here. Let's go ahead and just add a file to it. So there are some icons here. We have add new file. I can also add a new folder, right? I get to refresh. I get to collapse all the folders and expand them. That's if I had some folders that were showing down here. So let's go ahead and create new file. Okay. So one of the things I probably haven't mentioned yet is that for every Python file that you create, the extension for Python is .py. Okay, so it's .py. So example, I would have like, let's say intro.py here, makes a Python, right? And the moment Visual Studio Code sees .py, all the extensions and things for Python come into play, right? So I just write my Python code. We are not there yet, so I'm just going to say hello there, right? So that's it. So this is Python here. But I did mention that there's Jupyter Notebook, which is very common, especially for data science. So we are going to have a blend here, and I think you saw in the extensions that Jupyter extension was added. So just so that we are familiar with Jupyter, we're just going to use Jupyter in VS Code, okay, in Visual Studio Code. So for a Jupyter Notebook is py Python and nb for notebook, right? So the extension is .pynb. Okay, so let's have that. So we have our intro.pynb. Okay. Okay, so I'm waiting for my Jupyter Notebook stuff to come in here. Wait, did I get right? Okay, I'm just checking my Jupyter settings. Okay, create or open. Okay, let's do this. Right, PYNB, so that is correct. I was thinking the extension was wrong. That's why I wasn't opening it. But it's correct. So I think it's just taking a while for the notebook to work, right? So so I have it here. This still didn't. I'm still waiting for you. Okay, unfortunately that still didn't load for me. PY. Oh, okay. Hi, sorry. So this is my bad. So it's actually iJupyter, right? So there's an I and PYNB. So yes. So this is totally me. let's kind of like just rename and add the I. Okay, rename. Bring our I here. Okay, now it's working. So in VS Code, it has to be IPYNB. Okay, so we just found that out. So it's not just PYNB being the Python notebook, there's the IPython notebook. So there's this I that you always have to put there. I don't know why we need it so much, but then yeah, that's how Visual Studio works. So please just make sure if you want it to be a Jupyter notebook, you would have the IPYNB. Okay. All right. So that will automatically bring in the notebook format for you. Okay. So Jupyter Notebook, we are using it mainly because of the format in which it is. So Jupyter Notebook. We are using it because of the format in which it is, and this format is easy. It's more of a notebook format, so you get to write notes, and then you have your actual code, you have the results all in one notebook that you can save. Right, it's very friendly, so that is why we will be using that as well. In the end, it's still the same Python that you would have here that would be written here, just that it just looks, I mean, you'd have here that would be written there. It just looks nicer in the notebook, or easy to read in the notebook, not nicer in this case. Easy to read in the notebook. Okay, so let's take this out. Let's see. Okay, so that is all for our tour of the IDE. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Introduction to Python with me, Ikuya Oseiwa-Hinkwa. This is lecture 2 of Introduction to Python, and we will just have a quick recap on what we went over in the previous session. So in the previous session, we looked at the importance of programming. We also looked at why Python programming language. And then we taught the VS Code, which is our IDE for this lecture. I've also uploaded activity 1 in the Teams folder. So if you go to your Teams and you check lecture 1, you should see a PDF file with the name activity 1. Okay, so you just go through the activity and the main thing you'd be going through for that activity is the main task for that activity is installing the IDE, that is VS Code, and also installing extensions. Okay, let's begin with today's lecture. So right before we start, although this is going to be a recorded session, I still want it to be engaging and for you to interact. So in Teams, you should see a section where you can, one of the icons for the meeting, you should see reactions, right? So there are some limited reactions to in this meeting. So you can react to any part of the slide or the meeting anytime you have you want to react, you're free to react. There's also the icon to raise hand. So if you have any question at any point in time, you can raise your hand or type your question in the chat and would respond to that. Okay. All right, so let's start. So we'll start off with our first quote, which would be, more of our second quote, because the first lecture we also had a quote. So the the flow for this lecture would mainly be, would have some programming codes to start off with, and then we go ahead with the rest of the lecture. So the codes for today is first solve the problem, then write the code. Okay, and that's exactly summarizes what we'll be doing today. For today, we would have our first section of understanding some concepts, understanding some theory when it comes to Python programming, and then we would move on to write code and practice what we've learned. Okay. So for today's session, we would be covering values and types, variables, and then operators. Okay, values and types. So what is a value? A value is one of the basic units of data a program manipulates, such as a number or a text. Okay, so if you are writing any program, what you're doing is you are interacting or manipulating some data. Okay, so you're taking in some data, you're manipulating it, you're showing some information at the end. Okay, so all these are they have values, right? So all these are values. So the data that you're working with, it's seen as a value. Okay, so this could be a number, this could be a text you're working with. And we have some examples here. So for example, hello, 17, 20.5, true. These are all values, right? And in Python, a value, every value in Python has a type. Okay, so in Python, for all these values that I just mentioned previously, they have some types associated in Python. And it also helps Python know how to manipulate that value, okay, knowing the type. All right, so let's just look at some of the types we have in Python. So there are a lot of types. We're going to look at the basic types in Python, right? And that's what you would be using for now. We start off with integer, okay? So integer as a type, and in Python, it's seen as int, int. So this type represents whole numbers, okay? It may be positive or it may be negative, right? So example would be negative 23 or a positive 5 value. Okay, so all these are integer values in Python. So for us, it's a whole number. Okay, and just take note that in Python it's seen as int. Okay, so if you see int, it means integer. Then we have the type also floating point. So floating point, the type in Python is also float. Okay, so this is also a type that represents numbers with fractional parts, that is decimals in this case, right? Simply decimals. It uses decimal notation, okay, and it can also be positive or negative. Okay, so example would be a negative 23.2 or a positive 5.7. Okay, so there can be many other examples for this as well. Then our next type would be string. Okay, so string, text. So the type in Python is str. Okay, so if you see str, we're talking about string in Python. Okay, so this is a type that represents a sequence of characters. Okay, so you have some characters or some letters. So these characters or letters that it contains is strung together and enclosed in quotation marks. Okay, so all the words that have been highlighted are important, especially quotation marks. So for you to identify a string in Python, quotation marks is the best way to identify it. So any characters or combination of characters and numbers in between quotation marks means that that value is a string. Okay, so example, we have coders, hi, 1, 2, 3, first, right? All these are strings because they are within quotation marks, and single, double quotes all represent string. Okay. So we have the last type we'll be looking at in terms of the basic types is Boolean. Okay, so Boolean, and in Python is type bool, bool. So for Boolean, mainly two options. So this is usually representing like some logical evaluation or a value, right? So the only options are true or false. Okay, so it only represents if something is true or false, right? So these are the only values you can have for a Boolean. Okay. So now that we are done with the introduction to these four basic types, value types in Python, let's just take about a minute or two for a quick check-in, right? So what is the data type for, and what are the data types for the values below? Okay, so I have 7 different values, and I want you to just take time and type in the chat. So just type in the chat what you think the data types are. Okay, so for 1, you don't have to type the value itself. You can just type in. So 1, you type in the data type. 2, the data type. So you do that up to 7. So I'm just going to give you a minute to just type all this in and send it. And then afterwards, we'll check what the answers are.
Can we see the screen of numbers again?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, I think it's less than a minute though, but I think you by now you've been able to send your answers. So let's.
Okay, I just want you to check the answers.
Yeah, I'm checking. So I think you can probably pause the video a bit so that we get more answers.
Yeah, I've paused it. And actually 6 out of 7 is pretty awesome.
Thank you. I was interested, I guess the quotes, threw me off, but definitely a lot of new information. Thank you, Fia.
You're welcome. All right, thanks for the engagement, everyone. Should I continue with the video then, Ikuya?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Move on to the next slide and look at the answers for these values. So for VCC, that is a string because we have quotes around it. 3, although it looks like a number because we have quotes around it, it's a string as well in Python. So that is how Python would identify it. 2.5 is also, 2.5 in between quotes is also a string, okay? And then we have 3 as an integer, 2.5 as a float. Then true, because we have quotes around it, it's also a string, okay? And then false is a Boolean, okay? So I hope you're able to get all this correct.
Just
Now
wanted
let's
to add
move on.
that.
So at this point, we are clear on what values are. We also understand the basic value types in Python. Let's move on to variables, okay? And this is a concept that you would need to understand, not just for Python, in any other programming language. It's basically the same thing, okay? So for a variable, it's a name that refers to a value, okay? So it's like just giving your value a label, okay? So for example, we have pi being a variable name here for the value 3.14. Okay, so anytime we see pi, we know we're referencing the value 3.14. So that is how Python would also see it. Okay, so when Python sees pi, it knows that, okay, this is actually for this value 3.14. Okay, so it's just a name, but what it does represent is 3.14. Okay, so different programming languages probably treat this differently, but then the basic concept is that a variable is a name that refers to a value. Okay, so we have n in our second example being referencing the value 10. Okay, and message here references the value, this is a value. Okay, so we have a float value, an integer value, and a string value, right? And they all have variables or names for them, right? So variable names that are referencing these values. Okay, so now that we know what a variable is, can we just type in any name for our variables? Can we give it any name? There are some conventions out there for variables, and there are some do's and don'ts. So let's just quickly go over this so that when you are creating your variables, you know what you can do and what you cannot do. Okay, so for a variable name, it can contain both numbers and letters. Okay, there's nothing wrong with your variable name containing both numbers and letters. However, your variable name cannot start with a number. Okay, it's okay to put the number any other place, but definitely not at the start. Okay. Then variables can have uppercase and lowercase, right? So using uppercase or lowercase, it's okay, right? But generally, it's recommended to use lower cases, right? And one of the main reasons is the fact that Python is case sensitive. Okay, so I think we will get to experience that a lot more later when we are practicing. So Python is case sensitive. Case sensitive meaning that when you change the case, it means something different in Python. Okay, so if I have like true, right? We have true, what we had in the other slides. A capital T for true and a small t for true is not the same thing in Python. Okay, so Python is very sensitive when it comes to cases. So your variable names as well, you should be mindful of the cases you are using, because a change in a case would totally mean something different in Python. Variable names cannot contain special characters except for the underscore. And this also includes, when I talk about special characters, we are also talking about space. So variable names cannot contain space, any other special character, except for an underscore. Okay, so for underscores, that is okay to use that, especially if you have a very long variable name or a variable name that are more of like combination of multiple words. You can sometimes use the underscore to separate them, makes it easier to reach. Okay, so underscore is okay to use. You can also start your variable name with an underscore, although I would not recommend that you do that, right? Mainly if you're writing some library codes or something else, it's better you can use the underscore. And in your code, if you're also using underscore, it's not like it would not work, it would work. Just that it's not recommended way to create your variables, especially if you're writing simple codes. Okay. All right. And variable name cannot be a Python keyword. Okay. So Python has some words that have special meaning in Python. Okay, so when Python sees these words, they have a specific meaning, and your variable name cannot be the same as these keywords. So these are like reserved words for Python because they mean something special in Python. So you cannot have your variable name being the same as these keywords. As of now, I believe there are about 35 keywords. And as you see it in the image, there's also a link below where you can go there to check more on these keywords. But then some examples, I think you've probably seen some of them. So false, we already said that false is a Boolean value, true is a Boolean value, right? So you cannot have your variable name false or true, right? And there are these other keywords. Some of them would be using later on, right? So just familiarize yourself with these keywords, these 35 keywords, and know that your variable names cannot be any of these keywords. Okay. So we just went over variables and variable names in this case. And so let's just have a quick check-in again. Which of the following is not a valid variable name? Okay, so just take a minute. Well, I mean, this should be less than a minute. Just take a second and look at this and go to the chat and type in. You can either type in the name itself or you can just type the letter associated with it. So we have A, B, C, D, and E, and just type in the one you think is not a valid variable name. Okay. All right, so that's for check-in 1. Okay, moving on to the next one. So which of the following, same as the previous one, which of the following is not a valid variable name? Okay, so I'm going to...
Was that enough time for people to answer? Okay, great. Moving on.
To give you about 10, 20 seconds, just look at it and you can type in the letter associated in the chat.
If I think
Yeah.
someone's hand is up, so you can probably pause the
Okay.
video.
All right. Robert, the floor is yours.
Yes, just wanted to let you guys know that for some reason I'm not able to text or chatting here. So maybe you guys don't see me putting anything in the meeting chat for messages. Just letting you guys know. I'm still here.
Oh, you are not able to chat, put your answers in the chat?
Yes, for some reason I don't have the option for that. I don't know. I had to do an update.
How are you connecting with Teams? Okay, let's save it for offline and we'll troubleshoot. Thanks for sharing.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know. Thank you.
Okay. Ikea, I had a question. Is there a limit to the character names for the variables? Or it can just be as long as the name you want?
Yeah, it can be as long as the name you want. I mean,
Oh.
you'd be the one typing, so you definitely want it to be manageable, right? But yeah, it can be as long as you want.
That's a cool difference between SAS and Python, because with SAS, you just have 32 characters for your variables. So I was wondering if Python had a limit. Very cool. So we'll go back to the video.
Okay, right, great. So let's just look at the answers for this. So for the first one, A, B, C, D are all valid variable names, right? I mentioned that you can start a variable name with an underscore, so that makes A valid. You can have underscore within variable names. So That makes B valid. And C is also valid. Cases work, right? D is valid. But E is not a valid variable name. Valid variable name because you cannot start a variable name with a number. Okay. So for the second one, we have A, B, D, and E being correct, and C is not correct because it has space. I mentioned earlier that variable names should not have special characters, that is including spaces, except underscore. So C here becomes an invalid variable name. Okay, now that we understand how to name our variables, let's look at how we are actually going to create variables in Python. So in Python, variables are created by assigning a value to a variable name. So that is, you have a variable name, you have a value, and you assign that value to the variable name. And just by doing that, you create a variable in Python. Okay, so we have some examples here. So we talked about assignment, right? So assignment, how do we assign? There is an assignment operator in Python, which is the equal to, right? So there's the equal to sign here is an assignment operator. Okay, so whenever we mention assignment operator, we're just talking about an equal to sign. Okay, here. So having x equal to 2 here in Python is variable name x, right? Assign the value 2 to it. Okay, so variable name x references the value 2. Okay, so we've assigned the value 2 to the variable x. Okay, just like that. So the second example, age equals 70. This is also variable name age, value 70. So 70 being assigned to a variable age. Okay. Our third example, message equal to hi. Okay, so means the value hi, which is a string value, is being assigned to the variable message. Okay, so in the examples, we have 3 variables that have been created, and they all have different. I mean, 2 of them have the same data type value, and 1 has a different value type. Okay, so I think you'd hear me interchanging value type and data type, same thing. Okay, so data is a value. We said that earlier. All right, so this kind of eases us into our next topic on operators. I just mentioned assignment operator, okay? And at this level, the only assignment operator we would worry ourselves with or we would concern ourselves with is the equal to, okay? So that is the assignment operator that we are going to use at this point in time. Aside that, there are other operators, right? And operators are special symbols that represent some manipulation activity. Okay, so we've already talked about assignment, but then probably something like some computation. You have addition, multiplication, division, subtraction, exponentiation. So you have all these, and there are other manipulation activities that you can perform for operators. So we'll go over some of the operators that are available. Okay, so let's first look at some characteristics of operators. Okay, so operators that can be used depend on the value type, right? So specific operators work on specific value types, and some operators don't work on some of the other value types. Okay, and some operators also perform different manipulation tasks based on the value type. Okay, so we have some operators that work only on specific value types, and for the same operator, it could work differently depending on the value types involved. Okay. All right, so let's look at the arithmetic operators for now, right? So you're looking at arithmetic operators for numbers, right? So when I talk about numbers, I'm talking about int, I'm also talking about float. Okay, so we have the addition, which is the plus sign, subtraction sign. For subtraction, you have the star sign for multiplication, right? And we have the division for division sign. Okay, so we have just one of them. That is for division. Okay, so and for division, it means that usually for the single sign division, your result is always a float type. Okay, so if there were just even two numbers that you were dividing, like two integers you're dividing, your result would be a data type float. Okay, so just keep that in mind. We'll be practicing this so you get to see that. Then we have the floor division, right? So floor division is you have two slashes, so you have two of that of the division sign, right? And that is floor division. And for floor division, it means that it's always resulting in an integer value, right? So it takes the integer value. Right? So usually, let's say if it was like 5 divided by 2, you just have the integer component here. The decimal component is made useless, like, right? You don't see the decimal aspect to it. So if there's any division that has some fraction or some decimal, it's ignored, right? And just look at the integer value. Then we have you having two star signs is for exponents, right? So if you want to see maybe 2 exponent 10 or 10 exponent 3, you would have 10 with 2 star signs and then 3, right? Then we have this percentage sign arithmetic operator. So this is for modulus, right? So this is the modulus operator, and this for numbers. And what it does is to get the remainder of a division. Okay, so if you had like, and going back to our 5 divided by 2, right? So if you have 5 modulus 2, what we're talking about is, okay, what is the remainder after 5 is divided by 2? Okay, so in 5 modulus 2 here, we have 1 being our remainder, okay, from that division. So that's for the modulus operation. All right, now let's look at arithmetic operators with strings, right? I mentioned earlier that some operators have something, perform different manipulation tasks depending on the values. So a plus sign with strings, right? So if you have 2 strings, so plus sign can only work between 2 strings, right? If you want to use a string in this case. So plus sign for 2 strings in between 2 strings means concatenation. Concatenation being that taking one string and appending another string to it. Okay, so you concatenate 2 strings using the plus sign. Okay, so we'll see this in our practice. Then we have a multiplication sign. Our multiplication sign, that's our star sign here. In strings, it's for replication. And in strings, the way it works is, well, you cannot multiply. You cannot multiply a string with a string. So it's mainly a string multiplied by a number, right? So that is saying that, okay, take the string, replicate it this number of times. Okay, so you have some string and you say, okay, times, right? So multiply by 3 means, okay, replicate this 3 times. Okay. All right. Let's move on then to our comparison operators. So for comparison operators, we have these symbols. We have the greater than, the less than, equal to. Just take note of the equal to here, right? So equal to in Python would be 2 equal to signs, right? A single equal to sign is an assignment operator. It is not equal to, right? So if you want to compare and say, oh, is this number equal to this? Is this character equal to this? You use the 2 equal to signs, okay? Then we have not equal to being exclamation and one single equal to sign, okay? Then we have the greater than or equal to, less than or equal to symbols, okay? So these are the comparison operators. Then the last group of operators we'll be looking at is the logical operators. Okay, so for logical operators, we have and, or, and not. Okay, so and would be having a resulting value of true only when both sides of the operation, that is both operands, are true, right? So if I say 1 is less than 2 and 1 is less than 5, they are both true, so we then get a true value at the end. Okay, so and we have the or. So or 2 is when either is true, it still works, right? So 1 is less than 2, 1 is greater than 5, still is true, right? Or 1 is greater than 5. So then our not logical operator. So for not the not logical operator, it kind of negates it. So we have when it's false, not it becomes true. When it's true, and we have not, it becomes false. Okay, so it's just negating the value. So now that we are done with all this, let's practice. Okay, so let's just take a minute. Open your ID if you have it already installed, and let's start practicing.
So everyone, that was part 1 of Ikuya's lecture for today. At this time, I'm going to invite Abel or David to show GitHub walkthrough, and then we will continue with the lecture. We wanted to break the monotony. So Abel, should I bring up the video?
Yes, you can bring up the video.
Okay.
But also whilst Ifya does that, I'll just speak a little bit on what we are going to do. So GitHub is basically a web service, a web service which allows developers to store and manage their code, as well as to track changes within their code. So currently, since you are starting coding, your code your code might be very simple, but as you develop in your skill and as you take on bigger tasks, the number of pages you have increase, the number of various modules you have also increase. So what GitHub does is that it helps you to track the changes, helps you to manage the versions of the code that you have for every single page in every module that you have. As I said, you see the benefits when you are dealing in teams, or when you have a big project to work on. You have the flexibility of reverting to previous changes that you had. If you just even want to go back to just refer to something that you had done earlier on, you can do all that. And so that's what GitHub does. But there are alternatives to GitHub. We have, let me just share the link. There are alternatives to GitHub. You have Gitbucket, Gogs, Bitbucket, SourceForge, TerraVault. There are different services that are basically version control systems that help you to manage your code. So you can later go through them and just see what it does. As I said, because you are beginning your coding journey, you might not need it immediately, but this is something that is a standard globally with regards to managing code. Yeah. So I've shared the link with the GitHub alternatives. So right now, what I'm going to take you through is how to create a GitHub account, and also how to push a simple line of code onto the repository. So we'll start from there. So before I even start the video, do we have any questions on what I've just said? Does anybody want to know anything further with the version control system? Okay, no questions from Motion. Okay, that's good. Anyway, so maybe if we can just start and then
Okay.
So I mean, if you go to github.com, it will bring you to this page, or even if you type GitHub in Google, it will bring you to this page. So I entered my email address, and then I clicked on the sign up button. So as you can see, they'll ask you to create a password. So you go ahead and make sure that you store your password. If you don't have anywhere to store it, you can let your browser store it for you. So I mean, you put in a strong password, a mixture of numbers and letters, and then you also choose a username. So I chose Ebo Phillips. Ebo is my other name, so that's what I used. So this one, they ask you whether you want to receive product updates. I said no. So so that they sort of make sure that you are not a robot creating the accounts, they let you do some quizzes, basically. It's similar to a captcha that we see on many pages. So that's what I had to do. And then they'll ask me to verify my account. So as you can see, I said save, so I don't have to remember my password. But you can have the code. You can have the password stored in any secure password vault. Yeah. So what they do is that they will send you a secret code. So I went to my mail to pick up the code, and so I just copy and then I paste it in the space provided on the browser, and then I get in. Yeah. So so they just ask a few questions to know what you are going to do. So I decided to choose a team of 2 to 5, and says, are you a student or a teacher? So I chose teacher, but you can choose student. It doesn't really matter. They just use that to help you set up your account or give you what you might require. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that are under GitHub. So this one, basically, we're just looking at creating a repository. There are other things about CI/CD, which is continuous integration, continuous delivery, but that would be a little bit too much. So let's just look at storing and managing your code. Yeah. Okay. So you can either go for a paid version or a free version. So I went for the free version. So to give you a number of things that you should do. And from the earlier presentation, I realized that you were taken through Visual Studio. So they also recommend it. So I clicked on create a repository. So a repository, if you can pause it, a repository is basically the shell that your code is going to live in. So you can create multiple repositories for the different projects that you want to work on. Yeah. So I think you are limited on GitHub. You are limited by the size of your data. So you can create virtually unlimited repositories, provided that they are very small, but you have a limit that you are given. So, I mean, you can check that out on the settings, but okay, if you can continue. Yeah. So you give the repository name. So I gave it Coders Who Travel Python. So that's the name of Python test. That's the name of the repository I gave. And they'll ask you to put in a description just so that you can later reference it if you need to. And note that the next line is either private or public. If you make the repository public, that means that anybody who knows the repository can have access to it. But since you are trying things out on your own, I decided to make it private so that I work on it. If I'm in a team, I'll probably do it private and then work on the teams as in get people on board so that they work on the repository. Public repositories, if you are planning to go to production with anything that you have done, then you can make it public. But before then, you can just make it private so that then you have, yeah. So basically, I just fill in the form and then I get my repository. So as you can see, I have an empty project. It just has one file in there which is a git ignore file. So if you can pause, I think this is the end of the video. So it has a git ignore file, and what that does is that you put in all the things that you do not want in your repository. So maybe let me explain that a bit further. Whatever you upload or whatever you have in your folder or your project folder, if you make it a Git repository, what happens is that you push the information that you have onto someone else's server. Or I mean, it's not hosted by you anyway, so you are pushing information onto another server. So usually it's advised that if you have sensitive information, like if you are working on an application and you have sensitive information like passwords and all that for certain things or for certain services you are connected to, you are advised not to add that to your repository. So you have the ability to put all the things you do not want in the repository in your git ignore file. So if you have a folder for all your secret stuff, you can put that folder in the git ignore file. So that then when it's picking up the folders or the files to push, it leaves those ones out, and it's for security. But I guess later on we can delve deeper into that. Okay. So at the end of
people.
Yes.
Wait, sorry, did I interrupt you? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay. So I would have loved for us to watch your second video, but I'm looking at the time and the other lecture is 30 minutes. So let's do that in. Are you able to come next week to do the second video in between like today? Or you want to do it right now?
I should be able to do that. I should be able to do that.
Thank you for understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome.
Any questions for Abel? All right, we're moving to part 2 of Ikea's lecture.
Hi, Ifya.
Yes.
Yeah,
Let's
hi.
start
So,
with our practice.
Okay, I think you can probably pause the video. So generally, I had initially planned that I had this like quick quiz-ish thing, which was going to be like a fun quiz for us to do before we go into the practice. I don't know if we should go ahead looking at the time. I know with the practice part, if we're not done, the rest can be an activity in a way. So I don't know if it's okay to.
How long is the practice?
No, the practice would be the video you are playing.
Oh, but the fun activity is
it should be less than 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, let's do it. And then you know, the video is in the folder, so in case people want to complete it, they can complete it when it's time. But I like the idea of fun to break the monotony. So take it away.
Okay, so I'm going to, let's do this. Give me a minute to share the link. So I'm going to share this link in the chat, and you can go directly to that link. I can also share my screen. If you guys are okay to share my screen.
Yes.
All right. So let me do that.
If you have any sound, they have introduced a button like that in Zoom that you have to say share computer sound for us to hear your computer sound. Just
okay.
Something I kind of wrestled with last week. So do I have to stop share so you can share?
No, I think it's probably okay. It's just okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I see Ashley, Rich, and is that it?
Yeah, so they are joining. I think when you go to the link, it would
automatically put your name there. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I think you probably type in a name, a display name, and
Okay.
so we're just going to wait probably a minute and wait for everyone to join, or those who would be joining.
Oh, every day I'm buffering.
Yeah, buffering.
Uh-oh, I'm not supposed to do that. I would have wanted to play. Okay, I'll sit still. My name is boring. How to mix it up?
Okay, so we have 6 players now. I don't know if anybody is still trying to join, or do we start?
Let's start.
Okay, right. You can still join if you have not been able to join yet. So we're going to start. That means you get to probably miss out the first question. So it's just 8 questions, and it's based on what we just learned. Right. Okay. All right.
So much pressure with the timer, says
I know, yeah. So that's 30 seconds for you to complete. So yeah, there's definitely pressure with that. Okay, so let's look at the board and see. Okay, so at this point, nobody has any points. So our leaderboard doesn't really mean anything because we don't have points. All right. So let's move on to the next. Okay. Oh wait, sorry. I ended up pressing something else. So my other questions are not showing up, unfortunately.
What about the menu? Will the menu have it?
Not really. It's just going to stop. Okay, let's switch from full. Wait, I wanted to switch out of that instead. Okay, weird. So, oh, okay, sorry. Guys, I think I'm going to have to start. So it seems that I presented from the last question. So this was like the last question was what presented, right? So let's see if this would make sense. Oh wait, I'm still not getting my quiz to start. Okay, question one. Okay, good. Oh wow, yes. So we get to answer that question again, the last question. So I think this is like a second take for us for the last question. So those who got it wrong, you have another chance, right? Okay, so we had some number of people getting some thinking it's floats or ints. Okay. All right, so Ashley is leading currently. Okay, so question 2.
Quick learner.
You?
Yeah. Okay, we had majority getting that. Good. Okay, Rich is leading now.
Oh, wow. Does it give more points the quicker you answer? Is that what is motivating the points?
Yeah, that.
Okay, okay. Because I was like,
yeah, it gives you more points the quicker you answer. So okay, we had what are people getting that?
every day I'm buffering still.
Yeah. So yeah, Rich still leading. So nice. So we talked about flood division. So yeah. All right. Okay. So oh, it seems you had only one person getting that. Interesting.
Was it 0?
No, we had one person getting that correct. So, no, it's 0 actually. That is the correct one. So 3 modulos 4 here. We talked about that as well. I know this like usually in school what they give the simple examples and the quizzes have like the more difficult ones, right? Okay, so we have to look at the moodless. I don't think anybody got that correct. So we still have Rich. Leading. 2 more questions. To go. Okay, great.
Whoa.
Okay, we do have changes.
But I see a swap by Linda.
Yeah, that was a swap, yeah.
Yes, Linda, I see you. Yeah, William is trying to answer fast so he can get more points.
I know.
I have to balance that with getting it right.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, so we have some swaps, yeah.
Right, every day I'm buffering. Still stoked with that name.
All right, so there's a second take on this question. So
Oh, Ikea, there's the system recognizes that they already answered this one.
no, it wouldn't. Oh, seems like you've already answered. Oh,
Yeah, judging from the chat.
because I didn't plan the answers. Oh, sorry, guys, you didn't get a second take on that. So it seems we're going to have to stick with the first one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
Rich.
Eden. So yeah, congratulations, Rich.
Clap, clap, clap.
All right.
If I had awards, I would give the top 3 though.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Is it time for the other video now?
Yes, we can move on then.
Okay.
So I think that's it.
Probably
there were just some parts that I think there was just one question that I wanted to just go over because I think I saw nobody getting it. I don't know if it was because of the time, which I am assuming that's the case. But then I want to just use this to like quickly go over that. So we are clear, right? We are all clear that whether it's time or not. So this was for the 3 modules 4. I know modules was like a new concept, so it kind of makes sense here when I get in it. So if we have like 3 divided by 4, we know that it's more like it doesn't work, right? So it's like 0 remainder 3. Like if you are seeing it in your primary elementary level, you'd probably say it doesn't work. So it's 0 remainder 3. So which means that 3 modulus 4 would be 3 because the 3 would be the remainder, right? So yes. So that's why we had that being 3.
It's the leftover, Christian. Yes.
So I think that's mainly it. And let me just talk about the last one. I know if we had the second take, it would have changed, but let me just still go ahead and talk about this. So we have a true and a false. The moment we're using the AND operator, they both have to be true for us to get a resulting value of true. So it means that so far as one is false, our final value is supposed to be a false value. Okay, so if you have a true and false, and you have like true and false, it would always be false. Okay, so that's also for that aspect. I think the rest were probably clear. So that's it. We can go ahead with the video.
All right, so let's make a decision about the second video. It's also 30 minutes, right, Ikea?
Yeah.
And we are at 5 now. So please put your answer in the chat. Should we just watch halfway through that video and end the class, and then you will continue watching the remaining 15 minutes and then reach out to Ikea if you have answers, during the week and the TAs. Wonderful. So I'll kick off the second video. And Ikea, you wanted them to sort of mimic your activities in this practice, correct? Not just watch.
Yes. I don't know how feasible it is if you're using like the same computer to watch it and also have pictures together. I'm not sure how that works. If you are able to do that,
let them chill. Let them just watch the video and then get to the activity. Oh, someone can split screen on his or her laptop. I don't know who is typing. But if everyone can do that, then just follow along. But if you can't, you can do it after the lecture. It's recorded, so and it's on Teams, so you can always go to lecture number 2 and find this content.
Ify, are you sharing your screen?
Oh, thank you. I forgot about that. Okay, can you see?
On Visual Studio. So
we can see.
Okay.
Let's start with our practice. As you can see, I already have the Visual Studio code opened. Okay, so if you do not have yours open, and you can probably watch and as well work on Visual Studio. So try opening your Visual Studio code, and on your Get Started page, you should see Open Folder. I believe our first lecture, we went through how to open a folder. So let's just go through that process again. Or I already have the VCC folder on my machine opened. Let's just go through that again. So Open Folder is going to open your folders, navigate to where your VCC folder is. So for me, I have it at this location. So I just select that and my folder gets open. So I see VCC here. I mean, you do not see a difference because it was already open. Okay. So let's create a new file then. So we're going to use the Jupyter Notebook in VS Code. So let's call our file value practice. Let's just call it value practice dot IPYNB, which is Python notebook. Okay, so we have it opened now. And with this opened, we can start with our practice. Okay, so first off, let's start with the values. Okay, so if you can see my screen, this section where the mouse pointer is, I have it connected to Python. Okay, so by default, I think it should allow you to connect. If it doesn't, when you're running it, you would get a prompt to connect it to some Python interpreter, right? The Python program. So let's just start off with our values. We mentioned that we were going over 4 basic value types. Okay, so we said that we had whole numbers. So if I had 1, let's just add a comment. Let me add a comment here to our notebook so that it makes it readable. Okay, so let's do this. So value oh wait, spelling, if I could spell value types. Okay, and in Python notebook, Jupyter notebook, whichever one, I use that interchangeably. So please, it's the same thing. When you hear me say Python notebook or I say Jupyter notebook, same thing. So in Jupyter notebook, shortcut to run the code you have written is pressing the shift and on a PC. So shift and enter at the same time, or just clicking on display would also run it, right? So shift enter would work. I think you see there are also other shortcuts, so you can have control alt enter, that also works, but I usually use the shift enter for me since it's easier. Okay, so let's go with values. So we have 1 as a value, so I'm just typing 1 and just pressing shift enter. Okay, so nothing happens. Empty markdown. Oh, it wasn't a code, it was actually a markdown. Okay, all right, so that's okay. So shift enter, I have 1 showing here. So this 1 down here is my output. Okay. If you are using probably a normal Python code, you may not get any output yet, but then Jupyter Notebook kind of runs everything, right? It runs whatever you write here. So if I put 1 here, it shows that here. So we have 1 as a value. We didn't get any error because Python understands 1, right? So in the same way, 1.5, right? So that also runs 1.5, no error. So this is just for you to know that these values are accepted in Python. Okay, so let's go with our high. So high, we execute that high also works. Okay, so let's go with new code. Okay, so let's go with a Boolean, right? So let's go with true. And I mean, the good part of also using VS Code is the fact that it has all these color coding for you that sometimes it helps, right? So you know that the moment you change this to a small t, it isn't blue, right? So it's definitely not what you are looking for. It's not a keyword, right? So true. We have that here, so that works, right? So we've talked about, so these are like 4 types. You have the integer, float, a string, and the Boolean. Okay, so all these did not give us any error, so that's good. I'm just going to introduce something new that you probably, I mean, you don't really need to pay so much attention to that currently because we'll talk more about functions later, but I'm going to use this so that we can check the type. Okay, so I'm going to use this just so that we can check the data type for this. Let me see if I can just edit this. Okay, so check data type. Okay. All right. So what data types are we going to check? So let's start off first with checking for integers, right? So for integers, how Python sees that, we talked about that. So let's just quickly do this. And you see these notes and headers that I am adding to the code. This is just available in Jupyter Notebook, right? It's called Markdown. So you see that I have some Markdown that I'm able to add. So the Markdown just allows you to add notes. So you can mix the notes and the code together. Okay, so I'm just going to, I'm just adding this so that we have some notebook, and when it's shared, it gives you more detailed information. Okay, so let's go over checking the data types. So as I mentioned, there's a function in Python that I can use for that. So it's called type. Okay, and we'll get to know more about functions later. So just take it as it is currently. So what we do is we have type and we put in the value we want to check. So if I say 1, which is a value, so there's a value I want to check. I want to check the data type in Python. It says int. Okay, so we know that this type is int. Okay, great. Now let's do the same for string. Okay.
Hi, Fia.
Yes.
I think we have about 4 minutes, so we can pause it. I'm just thinking of probably re-recording this because I think the font size is really small. I don't know if the rest can see it clearly. I'm watching it and it looks really small.
I can see it even though it's small. Is it just me?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we can move on so that you'll be cognizant of it in future meetings, but I don't think you have to re-record this one, right, guys? Okay. Guys and gals. I could see the phone even though it was small, but I have a larger screen. I have like a 17-inch laptop, so maybe that's why I could see. Oh, you can also zoom in on MS Teams.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
okay. See, we are all learning from each other, technology. All right, so let's watch to the, how many minutes? Is it a good time to do Q&A then for the remainder
I think
of
so.
2
We have
minutes?
like 2 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, let me just monitor where we stopped. So at the 9th minute, okay. All right, the floor is available for questions. And Robert, if you still cannot chat, you can speak up instead. You might, Ashley has her hand raised. Yeah, please speak, Ashley.
Yeah, I just had a question, Afia and Akua. With the formatting, how do you go from, like, I think my issue is I'm having a hard time doing the math calculation of the code, and I just kind of just need some assistance on just like the basic formatting of our coding sheet, because I like how you do the organization of like the activities, but maybe just numerizing it and then just like kind of helping us with like going from the format to the actual math coding piece. I was having issues with getting my VSC to work.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do currently, and I'm actually uploading it currently, is my file, right? So I'm going to upload my file in the folder so that you can download and use that. And then with the period we have, I think I'm going to also upload maybe an activity that would show you how to just change that as well. Okay, so it makes it easier for you to do that.
Yeah, and that works. It will be good. And uploading it for an activity I know will be good for me, because I also had a question about, how you were placing in the markdowns or markups.
Yeah.
You answered that in your video. So yeah. And reading the chat, Rich says, I have no questions at this time, but I appreciate you all doing this. Thank you, Rich.
Yeah, there's a lot of good information today, and I think it's just kind of catching up with the formatting of our files and then the formatting of our coding sheet.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll backwards plan from the product on the Microsoft Teams platform and just like kind of work on practicing like debugging my stuff and preparing the sheet beforehand next time.
Yeah, so she will send an activity to support that as well. And also, please, activity 2 will be getting your GitHub account set up based on the guidelines that Abel gave, so that when he's here next week, we can build up upon that as well. And the video is available in Teams as well in lecture number 2. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. Yeah. All right. So please spread the word to more veterans in your network about this awesome Python training opportunity by awesome instructors. And yes, Ashley, you do. I'm still buffering or whatever. What's the name? It's cool. I hope you can top that. Okay, so in closing, I'll go to the bottom. Don't be slow. You can spread the word about Coders Who Travel, about the multiple ways you can give to us. It doesn't have to be you, but it can be people in your network, so this program can be sustainable. And then with that, thank you for showing up today, and have a wonderful weekend, and see you on Tuesday at 5:45 preferably, so that we can start on time. Thank you. Ikuya, any words? Bye, everyone.
Bye. Great meeting you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.